school holidays and all that, and people were complaining, but then we were wondering, what is it that we can do? Yeah, and we know that in this country and this part of the world, there are these people who fend their livelihood from uh, promoting promiscuity, and that in a large way leads to this particular menace. But then they do not want to focus on that. Instead, they want to push in some other narratives that because children now are getting sexually active earlier and all that story, now they need to be taught more about it, and brought in lots of discussions about the CSE, the comprehensive sexuality education in schools, and all sorts of things. But then most pro-lifers were just complaining. So we said, what is it that we can do? And we came up with a few friends and started organizing such like sessions in 2020. And then early last year, we started the process of registration, which we managed to finish in December last year. It took a whole year. You see, actually we started in 2020 around October. And so today it's a living organization that has values, and part of what we emphasize on is sanctity of life from conception to natural death. And we have a website from which you people can learn more. And so we started doing these sessions every month. And then we also used to have one which was bi-weekly, which was happening at night. The ones that were happening every month were usually done in the afternoons of Friday, but we were still looking for best timing. And this year we merged them to be at night, the first Friday of the month, like this. So every first Friday we have a discussion, and it's intended to give truth to the world, educating people and helping young people to understand that which many people don't teach them at home, don't teach them in school, and instead what is selling is what is being taught. And so today we are honored to have the Muindis, Chris and Gloria Muindi. And Chris, you did not give me your profile, so you will talk more about yourself, but this is what I know, that Chris is a very staunch pro-life, somewhat bordering almost extreme. And Chris is very knowledgeable and experienced when it comes to matters of natural family planning, and also these things to do with contraceptives, and he's been educating couples and helping people to understand how natural fertility education works. And so we are privileged to have them. They'll be able to share their stories with us. At the end, I will be able to introduce members of our group who are logged in. Otherwise, welcome, Chris, and let's move on.
Okay, OPP, thank you for that. And it's a good introduction. I'll introduce myself. So myself, I'm Christopher Muindi. I'm married to one, Glory Muindi. And myself, I'm a corporate banker. My wife is a teacher. And between us, we have 4 children. That is one in 8 years. The other one is 5 years. Then the other one is 3 years. And now we have a recent one who is 4 months old. So that's why maybe you have seen my wife walk out, because she has been called now to give food. So in the meantime, she'll be joining us just in a few minutes. She has gone to breastfeed just a little while. So we have a small young one. So we have Adrian, Ledwina, and Alphonsus, and then Ignatius. So we are blessed with 3 boys and 1 girl. So myself, I'm a banker, as I said earlier on. I've been married now. This is my 7th year in marriage. So I've been married to my college sweetheart. So we started dating with my wife, actually courting from immediately after university education. So my wife is a trained teacher. She's from KU. I was in studies in JKUAT. So today I'll be taking you through this. It's a sensitive topic, actually, controversial topic. Whenever you begin it, before people, you see them how they react. Actually, it's a very sensitive topic. So I'll first of all say just a short brief of our story of how we began and how I began to realize what contraception does to marriage and how it impacted ourselves, our marriage, and also I'll share for you the effects of all the most of the contraceptives that are sold here in Kenya. Most don't even realize that in Kenya we are being sold garbages. In Europe, the copper UD is banned. In USA, it is banned on women. You can't insert it on a woman. Even the Provela, most people even do not even know its name. Most ladies who are injected, it is banned in Europe. So you can't even inject it the veterinary board in Europe banned it. Yet you see women being queued here and being injected those injections by some of the business people here. I don't call them doctors, I call them business people because that is not a doctor. So I'll be sharing with you a brief story of our story. Ourselves, we were in the same sailing in the same boat. My wife and I were contracepting, and forgot to say also we are Catholics. So Catholics, you're not allowed to contracept. Our catechism is usually very clear. So I've struggled myself with that. I did not know what's the purpose and why the Catholic Church did not. That is around 7 years back. The Catholic Church, why it does teach that contraception is wrong. While we underwent our marriage preparation classes, I met a very knowledgeable priest. He was called Father Lawrence, and he taught us about contraception. Now, besides that, myself, I knew what my wife, why we were contracepting, because myself, I'm the one who took my wife to the clinic. And unlike most ladies who contracept behind the backs of their husbands, so myself, I'm the one who went and queued and took my wife to be inserted that coil. So we were using the coil, and actually, it was very detrimental to our relationship. And after years, after around 1 year, due to the constant infections that my wife was getting, the candida, and also since the copper IUD, it has a string. So through that string, there are some infections that arise every time that you're using it. And actually, that's why you meet somebody who is using the copper ID every time. Every 2 to 3 months, you'll be frequently going to the hospital to be checked if the coil is okay, because it will be dislocated, because your body is trying to fight it and trying to remove it from your body. So most of us are not aware that it is the same scenario. I give an example: when you're cutting firewood and you have a small wood that packs on your skin. So in a period of time, you'll find your body will try to fight that plaque of wood. How will it fight? It is through pus, and it will try to remove it. So when a woman is inserted, that's the coil. That's what it does. It tries to your uterus tries to remove it in a period of time. That's why you'll find the doctor telling you in a period of time, come for review. Maybe it will have dislocated some of it. Even some women, eventually it gets. Some women even find it on their matrimonial bed after a while. So after that, when my wife was the copper IUD was removed from her body, I did a specific research. I did a 6 months research. I wanted to know why is contraception wrong. As always, I consulted some of the doctors, but eventually what I got was the normal replies from the normal doctors, what you usually hear. They told me it's normal, everything, you can try another one. In fact, I remember one doctor telling me, gari kipata accident, hautaacha kupanda, so you'll just use it. So I saw that was not a solution. So what we did, myself and my wife, we planned to school ourselves on this topic on issue. So I went to Cardinal Otunga Plaza myself, and I met that time there was a doctor who was doing who was doing pro-life work. His name is Dr. Wahome. So he had his own people he had trained. I met, he's called Sister Margaret. She took us a small bit. Then eventually I met Dr. Juguna, who is a very pro-life doctor. I usually say he's the one who inspired us ourselves. So he took us through a 6 months course, a 6 months training. It was an intensive training of how you're supposed to use NFP. And for us, we did it because I wanted my wife to be aware of her body and how the changes that occurs. And most of all, I had this fear of my daughter because I did not want my daughter to undergo what my wife undergone through. So we had to school ourselves, and the doctor took us through a 6 months course, and we finished it, and eventually went to be taught to be teachers to teach it. So we were taught eventually by another doctor, Dr. Daniel Jai, together with Dr. Juguna, and also another other NFP instructor. And there was a priest involved. They were very pro-life priests. So eventually after that, now we saw people coming to us, and they were crying to us. They were telling us, I was seeing on how people are suffering in their marriage. I've met several couples, and I can tell you contraception. Actually, I usually say, myself and my wife usually say 80% of the marital problem is contraception. That's what our theory usually say. We are yet to prove it in a few years' time, but we have seen it through the couples that we meet. And I want to say mostly what you have found is men are usually the problem. They're the ones pushing women to this, and also there are women who are going behind their husband's back. And usually ourselves, usually when we meet couples who want to be trained on this, we usually ask them their real motive and why they are migrating from it. Mostly we have seen it's because of the effects of what couples are undergoing. So after that, we have been taking couples through in a few of our sessions for a few years. Then when COVID came, we tried to go online, but it was a bit difficult for us. So I would want now to start on just a brief introduction. I want to go to the details of the contraception, of how contraception started. Contraception has been all while along, even in the Bible. If you read the story of Onan, people usually think there's this modern way of contraception that is this it is called the modern pill, that was introduced by a lady called Margaret Sanger. Actually, she was a Catholic from a family of 8. So people think that's when contraception started, but it's not. That's not the correct time when contraception started. It just all started from the time of Moses, from the time of Onan, when Onan tried to spill seeds while he was having intimate relationship with his brother's wife after he died. The brother died, and that actually God slain him for doing that. That actually shows you that another form of contraception that is usually common among people is usually the withdrawal method that most people promote, actually even some of the doctors, which is very unfortunate. So contraception has been all the way through, even the time of Saint Jerome, Moses, and even St. Augustine. They rebuked women and also couples who use contraception. So now here comes the game changer of the Margaret Sanger, she was now the modern lady who created now these pills. Women they usually get the emergency RU 46. And actually, when Margaret Sanger started distributing this, he was being held by a fellow, I don't remember quite the name, being held by a fellow friend who was usually a scholar on how to produce, and they tested it among some few women. And after that, the main aim of Margaret Sanger was, she saw how her mother was getting difficulty while conceiving, and then her main other motive was eugenics. There are some element of eugenics, and usually elimination. Actually, when you go to the Europe, you will find most of these clinics for contraceptives are usually in the black area. where we have the black Americans. That's why they're usually based, most of them. And in fact, I realize most whites, even they don't use these contraceptions. They have learned how to learn the cycle of their body. They have learned how to know their fertility, track it, and also they have monitored how the body of a woman works. So basically, I would want to say this. After that, now it is when the revolution came, there was introduction of these Deproveras. The Depo-Provera is usually an injection that most women call the 3 months injection. Now, unfortunately, what pains me a lot, even most of the ladies, they don't know the name of even what they are being injected. And it's so unfortunate that even if you have doctors in this call, the first thing I usually, myself, when I go to the hospital, if I'm sick, I usually ask the doctor, why am I sick? What is the sickness caused about? The drugs, even the antibiotics, most of them they usually have a lot of side effects. I usually ask the side effects, how they work, and how they will interfere with my body. So unfortunately, most of us, like myself and my wife, we had been brainwashed and we had not done a lot of research on this. Now that was on our previous years. Now we came to realize now that, like the Depo-Provera, I'll just highlight most of the side effects and what they do to women. I'll start with the Depo-Provera. Now the Depo-Provera injection, most of us are not even aware that that injection had been banned even in Europe. You can't even inject it on a dog. The veterinary board in those countries, it's usually has been disbanded actually, and you're not even allowed to inject it on any veterinary or any animal, even for purposes of procedures or doing tests. Now, and when you come here in Kenya, you'll see these modern clinic officers, the business people injecting it on our women, which is very sad. And what it does, it prevents the woman from ovulating. And the major problem I've seen that the Provera causes is usually you'll find most of the ladies who are using the Provera, you'll find them, they have this condition called osteoporosis. And mostly later on, I've seen most of them, they develop arthritis. I've met old ladies who have got arthritis out of this injection. And mostly they have their bone mass their bone mass. It's usually very low. You'll find a woman with very, very thin legs. And mostly, if you dig, not all of them, but if you dig into the history, you'll find that they have used contraception. So also a lady who is using that Depo-Provera, you'll find the Depo-Provera, another thing it does, it interferes with the mucus. There's a mucus that is usually produced on a woman when she is ignited for intimacy with the husband. So the Depo-Provera tends to dry that mucus up. So when you are having intimacy with your wife, you'll find that almost 100% of the times the lady will be dry. So what you'll be experiencing is friction. Now you can imagine this woman will have low libido. She'll be less thinking of doing a matrimonial act with the wife, with the husband, sorry, with the husband. And that's why you'll find most of them, they usually have very low libido. They're not even interested. And you'll find a lot of fights. We have seen ourselves with most of the couples we meet. Most ladies even have no even urge for intimacy. They're not willing to satisfy their partner and perform their matrimonial duty. That's one of the things that you have seen. That among the ladies that we have got, the couples that you have trained. So I'll be going to briefly among the effects of this contraceptive. Then eventually I'll say the perfect solution for this. Then we'll welcome a section for the questions. Then my wife will she will try to summarize her experience on how she has turned from contraceptives to the natural way of learning her own body. So the other one is the copper IUD. Now the copper IUD, this is one of the famous and also the most popular. Usually hear most doctors promoting, and actually unfortunately very few doctors know how the copper IUD work. Myself and my wife, we have been involved with very many discussion with most of the doctors. I've learned even most of them even they are not aware or how even the copper UD works. And even most of us who are inserted, my wife had it, she did not even know how it works. Now these most people who need the media, the medical fraternity, especially the nurses. I know my mother is a nurse, and also my mother-in-law is a nurse. Myself, I'm from a family of medics. My father was a doctor, and my mother-in-law, she's alive. She's a nurse, a retired nurse, and my mother is currently she's a nurse also. So they have been trained in their medical school. They have been trained that copper IUD is the best for family planning, since they are told it has less hormonal, it has no hormonal effects. And actually, I want to say it's the worst. I think it's second most worst. And what actually if people would learn contraceptives, how they work. Contraceptives work in four main points. They work as abortifacient. And abortifacient means it's in case conception takes place in a woman's uterus, conception takes place around the fallopian tube. Implantation, now what copper UD, it reduces the chances of implantation on the uterus. So that woman, the lady, what she does basically 2 to 3 months, 2 to 3 months, she'll be doing an abortion, and she'll not be realizing. Myself and my wife, up to now, we are doing reparation for the 1 year that we did use the coil. For the souls, we might have we might have aborted unknowingly, because we never knew how the coil works actually, and even most of the ladies are not aware of how the coil works, even most couples. So it works only by one function, only by causing abortions. That's how the copper UD works. And if you look at the copper UD, mostly it's made by copper, and after a period of time in a woman's womb, you'll find the copper ions are usually released. And most of us have done chemistry, and I believe when myself I did chemistry, when you mix copper and water in a woman's womb, and the fluids which contain water, there's likely of some rust. That's why you'll find most of the copper UD, after years they are being reviewed by these gynecologists, find them with rust. Now you can imagine all that poison you're putting it in a woman's womb, what the repercussion might be. And also there are also these effects of the ectopic pregnancies. Most of them are usually caused by the coil. My friend who is a doctor who trained me on this is called Dr. Jiguna. He once told me of a girl who was his patient, who had the copper UD, and she actually, it was as a result of being influenced by the mother to do it, to put it in her womb actually, and she was in high school. Immediately after high school, she was infertile. She can now, up to now, she can't conceive. She's now permanently infertile. She can't conceive any children of her own. She's in marriage right now, and you can imagine the scenario in that kind of a household. So I've said contraception work by abortifacient. The second is by abortion and sterilization, and contraception by preventing. Contra means conception, means preventing conception. That is one of the ways in which these chemicals or poisons they work. Actually, they're not even, I don't know why people call them medicines. I usually hear some people saying they are dawa, and they cause very detrimental effects to the women. And another thing, what the coil does, in case you have the effects of you'll find a woman who has this coil, each 2 to 3 weeks she'll be experiencing, every time she'll be experiencing internal bleedings. Like my wife, for example, she was almost every time losing a lot of blood, and she had anemia. And most of them you'll find the same. You have seen in most ladies, they are having anemia. Every time they are losing blood because of and they are having very heavy menses actually. And this blood you're losing is from your body, and eventually you'll become anemic. Another form of I want to touch also is this the pills. Now, on my research, I usually see many people on the streets. Actually, they are doctors and they are fighting cancer, and I don't think they realize what they are fighting. They're not fighting the root cause of the problem, and that is usually, I usually say, you're always fighting for symptoms and not finding the root cause. One of the root causes of breast cancer is usually these pills, and most doctors, even those who are in this call, they know the cause is the major cause. It's only maybe some of them may not be generous enough to notify their patients and their clients. Breast cancer is brought about by the continuous use. It's a major cause. It's brought about the continuous use of these pills. And if you try to research the contents, the World Health Organization has classified the pills as class A carcinogens. What does that tell you? They are cancer causing agents. So you can imagine a doctor who is advising his or her clients to use such kind of poisons. I had a scenario later on when we went to the clinic. Actually, it's a mission hospital. I won't mention the name. It's one of the mission hospital. And then a doctor was hold the pills like this. Then she was telling my wife, you see this? These have saved my marriage, and they are pills. You can imagine. This is a doctor who has undergone 4 years of medical training, telling that to a client. So we had just my wife just schooled her on. She's a medic also. Told her herself she's using the pills, and unfortunately, I've come to realize most medics are not well trained on this, and it's a devastating. And those who know, they have used the opportunity to exploit women and use them. The other class of contraception I want to say is after the copper IUD, there are these the rubber, these the condoms. I usually call them paper bags. I don't like them calling them condoms because they're just basically paper bags. That's why they're very ineffective. Studies have shown that most sperms can pass through. So these are, you can't say you're preventing anything, pregnancy or any disease by using this rubber latex. Actually, I usually say on my side, they don't assist in anything actually. The other class I'll also say is on the other side is usually the tubulation, and you'll hear the women saying naenda kufungwa. Like now, this is usually it's mutilating your body. And last week I had a discussion with one of the famous doctor here in Thika, and the doctor was telling us of advising us of how we took I took my wife for a review. Then she was advising us of how tubulation is done and how we should consider doing it. And we had also to have some disagreements on how actually it's a business entity, on how they try to convince women on doing it, and it's very detrimental to the women. So most of the cervical cancers and also this high blood pressure you see on women, most of the women today, is usually caused by the continuous use of this contraceptive. I know specific ladies who have arthritis, they have high blood pressure due to the continuous use of these 5 to 10 years of use of these chemicals into their body. And it's very disastrous. And you see them always, they are always on medication, and for years they'll be on medication. So the other thing I'll also want to say is the other class is also, I'll pass briefly, then the other class is also the implant. The implant is also the no plant. Usually most of the women are inserted. That is the no plant. What the no plant does, it usually alters the progesterone. It's actually it's like you're making your lady always pregnant forever, while a lady is on implant. So what you're doing, you're living with a woman in your home who is actually all through she's pregnant. She's having mood swings. You are altering her hormonal changes. And actually the no plant, a woman who is using the no plant, she has over 50 over 50 hormonal biological changes in our body. You can imagine what the now plant does. And most of them, they lack their menses, which God created a cycle. A woman should be having a cycle, normally a cycle, and which is I see is very, very detrimental on the side of the women. Actually, it's like hurting women. You're not, rather than protecting women and educating them of being self-aware of their body, of how their body works, God has created them. You're altering the rhythm of the body of the woman. So you're just pumping all through. You're pumping progesterone throughout her life, and making her look like she's pregnant. And it interferes also. Doesn't most women? It prevents ovulation from occurring. Now, I think now I'm done with the side of on the side of the contraceptives. Now, the solution to this, I want to say, is mostly most women don't realize that almost 98% of their life they're usually infertile. So I usually ask myself when I'm meeting a couple, my wife and I, and you're training them all through all these, I educate them on the effects, and I usually ask the man, if you truly want you love your wife, why would you want your wife after 10 years of your marriage, going to hospital, paying all these bills for high blood pressures, and having these arthritis, all these diseases, bringing your marriage, you're living with basically a person who is not herself into a marriage. And I know most of the women understand this. And I want to say this, up to now, my wife and I usually wonder how couples who contracept, they make it into marriage. For us, it was detrimental. We were not be, we usually joke, we were joking for a while, and then we were asking ourselves reminding ourselves how our marriage was. It was very, I would say it was very difficult. I don't know how men nowadays manage living with with a woman who is contracepting all through. I think for us it was very, very detrimental to my wife's health. It was chaos in the house, and I wouldn't want the same. And after we studied and educating of ourselves, educating we educated ourselves on how the body of a woman works. We were readily, and we can pass that information to our daughters, educating them of their cycle. The body of a woman is created in such a way that she's 98% infertile. How does she know she's infertile? Most of the times through in a woman's cycle, she has dryness. When she is fertile, there's a certain mucus that's usually very slippery that is usually produced. And most women are able to know, even most uneducated, even blind women. Some of the women who are using they are using natural family planning are usually blind, and most of them, some of them even are illiterate, and they are able to know right now I'm fertile. So whether a woman has short or long cycles, she's able to know if she's fertile. She's usually fertile between 4 to 5 days, depending on the number of days. Now, what I'm speaking right now is not the calendar reading method. These most doctors try to scare women away, telling them some nonsense, telling them, oh, this is what your grandmother used. What I'm talking is scientifically researched, and it is called the Billings ovulation method. It was researched by and invented by a doctor called Dr. Billings. They are a couple. Both of them, they were a couple, Dr. Mr. and Mrs. Billings. They discovered that the woman is fertile between 4 to 5 days. So mostly when we meet couples and they educate them on these matters, they ask us, now we will have 15 children, 20 children. That is not usually the case. You're able to discern if you don't need a child. I don't want to use the word need. If you want to postpone, not avoid, postpone pregnancy, basically what you do as a man, you will try to abstain from that period of intimacy with you and your partner, and you can continue with the intimacy and matrimonial act after the fertility of a woman. So I don't see the need of a woman who is usually 98% infertile carrying all these burdens and all these coil cervical cancer and all these diseases, and actually they are faced by women. Actually, I think it's a crime against women, actually. And if you're a man, I don't think you will want every time you have a wife with all these high blood pressures brought about by ourselves, not out of by our own ignorance, actually. So I want to say it's actually a crime against women. Actually, it's hurting women, actually, and also hurting the society. Actually, what we are doing, and most of these doctors who insert these things on women. I think it's the worst thing you can do. One of the worst thing you can do to a woman. And so I was explaining of how a woman is usually fertile only on specific days in a cycle. So when you're able to know a woman is fertile, depending, the fertility varies. A woman is not very, I'm not speaking of these safe days that women count and they start some, I call them some witchcraft, because there is no science backing that up. The ovulation of a woman can be postponed by stress and also by environment, change of environment. So a woman can ovulate in case the ovulation can be postponed in case of this alteration of a woman. So each woman is very different. So what we do, we try to make men understand on how to treat their wives and how to learn their cycles better, and how they can, and to bring more intimacy in terms of communication between the wife and the man, the husband and the wife. And the wife and the husband will be able to know, now we are fertile, we need a child, we can conceive it now. And in case we want to postpone a pregnancy, we can have intimacy after our the fertile days are over. That's a basic summary of how the fertility awareness works, and how there's changes of hormones in a woman's body. And another thing I'll also want to touch on, and also is also, I would want also my wife can come maybe and give a brief history of how she changed from the contraceptive and using the NFP, and she'll try to give just a summary of the brief and the changes that she encountered.
Uh, for those that are seeing me for the first time, I'm Glory Muindi, wife to Christopher Muindi, and I would like to agree to everything that my husband has said concerning the side effects that are caused by contraception. For me, out of experience, I would like to say that contraception has affected me in a great way the time that I was using the IUD, and I would like to encourage those people those women that are actually using them, and maybe they find it difficult to to stop. For me it stopped. For me, I stopped using the IUD, and I shifted from artificial contraception to natural family planning. And I must confess that while using the natural family planning, I have I have learned to appreciate myself. I have learned to live the natural way, and also I've learned to get along with my husband, because the time that I was using the artificial contraception, we had so many disagreements. I was not myself, and I was struggling with the infections that he was actually saying, because the moment you use the IUD, you are prone to so many UTIs. So for me, I would like to say that it is possible for one to use natural family planning, and natural family planning is totally different from the rhythm method that people tend to think that it is counting days. It's totally different, whereby a woman is encouraged to understand her body. And right now, as we speak, I'm actually using a method in natural family planning known as lactation amenorrhea, whereby you breastfeed exclusively, and there's no menstruation. So thank you.
So another thing that I would also want to add on the part of contraceptive, mostly men, when you're using to this kind of contraceptive, what you're just using is you're idolizing your wife and you're using her as an object. That's what we have found on most of the couples, that most men are not usually willing to sacrifice themselves for their spouses, and this is a major issue. And we want to say that not every act in that doesn't mean that while you're using, when you have learned your fertility awareness method, that every act that is it is open to life. Every act in the marriage life is usually open to life. You can't separate the two, the unitive and the procreative act in the marital act. You can't separate the two. That's why the Catholic Church has always taught that. And most people are not aware that before, in 1930, there's a conference that was held in Lambeth. It's called, you can Google even after this call, this meeting, you can, it was called the Lambeth Conference. Up to 1930, all the denominations in the world, there is no denomination you can research that allowed the use of contraception in the world. There is no. There isn't any, even the Methodists, the Anglicans, there were no any denomination that allowed the use of contraception. After 1930, after that conference, it was then that the Anglicans decided to allow contraception only on some rare occasions, but the Catholic Church still stood and said contraception is evil, and up to now, that's what has been going on in the Catholic Church. But unlikely, most of the couples are contracepting. Out of maybe, most of them are not aware of it's a sin. It's actually a mortal sin in the Catholic faith. And also, I would want to say, most of there were some predictions that were made in the Catholic Church. There's a document called Human Vitae that the Pope wrote and actually predicted that the use of contraception will bring a lot of infidelity. Nowadays, you can see marriages. You have met couples who maybe are not willing to be chaste for each other. There's a lot of infidelity, and also there's a lot of loss of respect for women. Anyone who is most couples, you can see that the woman has been degraded into a self. Just the man wants to gratify his pleasures. He doesn't care whether the wife is sick, whether the wife is unwell, and if he demands the marital act anytime, he says his needs has to be satisfied, of which I believe the marital act should be between both of the couples, and that's why God ordained that before a marital act there should be foreplay. And the marital act, actually, from the women's side, starts from the brain. They release some hormones, then women, they'll have a natural way of lubricating themselves, not using them common lubricants that you are told by some gynecologist, or you can use them. Actually, they are not healthy, most of them. It starts from the brain. And when a matrimonial act is natural, and I had one person who was telling us why us Africans we like complicating things. The marital act should be natural, but yet we use most chemicals. We damage it. It lacks the matrimonial bond aspect it has. So you'll see also most of the couples who use these paper bags, I call them the latex, the rubber condoms. There's a condition called preeclampsia, and you see most of it on most of the women who are contraceptives. Usually very common mostly on the women who are contracepting. And also there's a hormone that while you're having intimacy, there's that bonding hormone that is usually released for you, both of the spouses, for you to bond. So basically, when you're using this contraceptive, your withdrawal, and also you're using the latex, you're denying your spouse that unitive act of you, both of you, bonding and being cheerful. And there was a study that was done by Dr. Thomas Ilges. He's a doctor in the US. He also teaches fertility awareness using the Creighton method. That most couples who have intimacy, mostly they are joyful, and most of the problems, there is that bonding and unity act in the marriages, happiness, and you have witnessed them. Rather than most couples who are contracepting, you're just using your spouse, mostly the men actually, using the spouse as a mere gratifying object and pleasure. So as we close, maybe I'll want to say I can invite my fellow friend and the Dr. Eda, and also there will be a section for questions. A section
Okay.
for questions
Thank
for
you.
anyone who is willing to ask any
Thank
question for
you.
any clarification.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Glory. Yeah, it takes boldness to go against the grain. And at your age, most people will look at you and say, how old are you? You could be 18, eh? What knowledge do you have? Now, I'd
Actually,
like to
for
invite.
those who do not know, we are in our mid in the 20s, and actually we are in our mid 20s. We have been married. We finished school and we got married immediately. So we got married when we were 20 years. So
Good.
we were in our late 20s.
Good. So, as I said, I'd like to say two things. One is this meeting is usually a little controlled because some of the people who really don't like what we do have always tried to hijack it and display nudities and all sorts of things. And so if you notice that you've always been with me in different meetings and the door is open and everything, everyone can do everything. This one we try to control because it's been hijacked before, and others tried to do other funny things, showing funny videos, and it was not very good. So we tend to control it. Number two, I said I will mention some of the people in our organization with whom we started this, and one of them is Dr. Eda, a member of the Catholic Doctors Association, a medical doctor, and counselor, counseling psychologist, and very, very passionate about. I love this Dr. Eda because she has very powerful stories. Yeah, she's better when she is sharing them without any slide. She's just telling the stories. And the beauty with Dr. Eda is she's gathered a lot of experience through study. She's very meticulous in study. She's a perfectionist. And then she was a feminist, those extreme feminists who are taught all the bad things with men. So she's got enough to share with us, and she's got the history of how all these things started. And she will tell you where were contraceptives in the 80s. They were not allowed in the hospital. So Dr. Eda, you can make your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. Sorry, somebody has asked a question. Yeah, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation, Chris. I thought that you would want some slides, but it seems that you don't want slides. You know, mimnim to a slides. Anyway, so unfortunately, women's bodies are used to make a lot of profit in the world. And basically, we have been lied to. And I remember sometime in the 90s, was it in the 90s, after my second born in 1990, there's a lady who I used to go to church with. She was a gynecologist. And she told me, basically, if you keep popping babies like this, your husband is going to leave you, you know? And I only had 2 children. And I really believed her because I looked up to her. She was going for Holy Communion. I said, I said, these things that the church tells you the church is completely backward. You know, you're going to discover that the church is irrelevant and they should move with the times. At that time, I was saying, like, you know, actually, where will the Pope be when I'm looking for school fees? Am I going to be calling the Vatican please help me with school fees. No, they're not going to help me at all. So I've been through all that struggle. And I was like, I didn't understand what the church is teaching. And most Catholics don't understand the church's teaching. So she put me on contraceptives for 5 years. That time I was a young medical doctor. And I was on the pills and microgynon, but I was not happy. I think it even gave me depression. And the fact is, I was saying, when I discovered what the contents were and that the World Health Organization actually says that hormonal contraceptives are class 1 carcinogens in the same class as asbestos and tobacco. There's a time that the people who are fighting against the cancer producing effects of tobacco were really being fought. But right now you see that on the cover of a tobacco product or cigarettes, this is harmful to your health. This can cause cancer. I don't know whether we'll ever reach that stage with contraceptives, but that's exactly what needs to be done. So I was swallowing a class 1 carcinogen. I was not happy and my libido had gone down. And you just generally, it changes your body completely. You're not yourself. It just makes you in a permanent state of pregnancy, because it tries to trick your body that you're pregnant so that you won't ovulate. And at that time, I thought it was purely preventing ovulation, only to discover later that they have 4 main effects, hormonal contraceptives. Preventing ovulation is a minor mechanism of action. Another one is preventing implantation of the newly fertilized child, the newly made child, because life begins at conception. And that makes it an abortifacient. So the hormonal contraceptives, they change the lining of the uterus so that it becomes very unfriendly. Like the copper T is 100%. The copper T is 100% abortifacient. Hormonal contraceptives have a very high percentage of being abortifacient. They prevent implantation of the newly formed baby. Then they prevent the fallopian tube, the movement of the cilia, which are supposed to help the newly formed person to move towards the uterus for implantation. Yeah. So, and then they also cause thickening of the cervical mucus so that the sperm find it very hard to get to the egg to fertilize it. So we should remember that hormonal contraceptives also have an abortifacient effect. And this is part of it. Margaret Sanger, the one you mentioned, actually, yes, she was traumatized because her mom passed on after having many children. But probably she needed counseling because she became such a radical feminist, and her ideologies have lasted until today, you know. So she said that women should be able to have sex as much as possible like men and be able to walk away from a pregnancy like men, you know. So basically she was this is the second wave of the feminist movement. The first wave of the feminist movement was about empowering women and that we are made in the image and likeness of God, just like men, so we have equal dignity. It was a genuine Christian movement. But the second wave, started by Margaret Sanger, she said that we must be equal to men in every way, including not being able to walk away from a pregnancy, to be as promiscuous as we want. And all you need to do is get a woman with a father wound, and you've got a radical feminist in the making there. So since there's so many women who have been oppressed by men in their childhood, either their uncles, their fathers, their brothers, once you pass this ideology that all men are bad, basically this ideology is about masculinization of women and feminization of men, so that the family unit is destroyed. So we should see this ideology for what it is. It's not about empowering women. it completely overturned the first wave of feminism, which was by Christian women who maintained that their ability to give life and to nurture life was actually what made us very special. But the second wave said that no, this ability to get pregnant is a disaster. We need to strip women of this. We need to make, they actually saw pregnancy as a disease. But you see, like now, Margaret Sanger was also a eugenicist. So she also believed that all Blacks were human weeds. Actually, she said that colored people are human weeds that need to be exterminated. She lived in America for some time, and she said that we have to exterminate, word should not get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. We have to make it look very nice and call it something nice like family planning. So she managed to get hold of the pastors and trusted pastors and get them to pass this message about family planning. But the real reason behind it was the extermination of the Negro race, of the Black African American race. And it extended all over the world. So in 1985, my first year in medical school, actually contraceptives were not allowed anywhere near any hospital in Kenya, because they were in the same, they were seen to be drugs in the same class as alcohol, cocaine, and heroin. Actually, they're not medicines, because medicine is described as the study of the prevention, the treatment, the prevention and treatment of disease. The diagnosis, the prevention and treatment of disease. Pregnancy has never been a disease. And Hippocrates himself, the father of medicine, said his first precept was, do no harm. So the pregnancy is not a disease, so these are not medicines. They're actually street drugs in the same category as dangerous street drugs. Yeah, so that is what people should know, that contraceptives are not medicines, they are drugs, and they are harmful. And natural family planning was not taught to us in medical school on purpose, precisely because there's no profit to make. There's no money to make from it. And there's a lot of money being made by big pharma on contraceptives. And like Chris has said, they've been banned in other countries and poured into Africa. They don't love you. All these things you're saying, oh, we love you, plan your family, what. By the way, there's something called demographic winter. Do you know that the world population is going down because of widespread contraception use and abortion, which is being pushed by the World Health Organization? The World Health Organization says that abortion is healthcare and contraception, including of children, is healthcare. So I don't subscribe to the World Health Organization. Yep, so they have completely lost the plot. It has been overtaken by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who are eugenicists also, who believe that depopulation of the world, depopulation of the undesirable races, like you and me, everybody here who's black, dark-skinned, we are the undesirable races. So what needs to get out there? Women and men have more children. Just space them well. So we use birth spacing, natural family planning. Billings' method was very good. It was started and then it was perfected in the Creighton model of NAPRO technology, and I'm a fertility education expert with fertility education and medical management organizations called FEM. So FEM and NAPRO technology have perfected the Billings method, and they have a very low failure rate. Yeah, so they're actually scientific and they have a very low failure rate. Like Chris and his wife, lovely wife, have said, this thing of safe days, the rhythm method, and telling all women that they will ovulate on the 14th day is more of witchcraft than science. Everybody has a completely different ovulation cycle, and the ovulation cycle in one particular woman may change from month to month depending on her exposure to stress. But these other methods are actually just as effective in well, they don't prevent pregnancy, they lower the chance of pregnancy. But the fact is that the act of the marital act of intimacy you cannot separate the procreative function from the unitive function. The two must go together. So every single marital act must be open to life. I finally discovered what the Catholic Church was teaching, which was hidden from me by this doctor who put me on the pill. By the way, I threw the pill very far after 5 years, and I got 2 more lovely children, and I never looked back. So please don't listen to these people who tell you that contraceptives are good for you. They've been paid to tell you that. Yeah. So for me, I'm not getting anything for saying this. All I want you to be healthy. These are poisons, these are toxins. So natural family planning works, especially the Billings method, NAPRO technology, and fertility education and medical management. Don't be fooled. And definitely, when men and women are using natural family planning, there's so many advantages. Number one is the communication aspect, because every day your husband needs to know exactly what's happening in your body, and he's looking at you and he's asking you, are you okay? And by the way, women, we hate being taken for granted. When sex is available every day because you're on the pill, you actually feel like a sex object. By the way, it's true. And when a man can actually wait and show you love in other ways, because you're not ready for a child that particular month, then you have a lot of respect for him. And it is quality more than quantity. So actually the divorce rate in people who use natural family planning is extremely low. In populations like America, where it's 30 to 50%, those who use natural family planning methods have a divorce rate as low as 1 to 2%. So because of the communication is the #1 cause of divorce, and women feeling used, and everything that was promised in the 1968 document of Humanae Vitae, written by St. John Paul VI, has actually come to pass. Women are not being respected. There is a lot of infidelity. He said there will be a lot of diseases, sexually transmitted diseases. He also said that now powerful nations will force weaker nations to use contraceptives. Everything that he said in that document has come to pass. And now we're in the third wave of the sexual revolution. The third wave of feminism now is really crazy. It's the transgender movement, false gender ideologies, where we're being told that the word mother and father is illegal in America now, that we have people who, somebody who's born as a boy can change into a girl, and a girl can change into a boy. This is complete madness. This is the final stage, and actually Jesus had better come back. Anyway, I can talk for the whole year. But let us not fall for these false gender ideologies. This is probably the final stage. I think probably now God is up there saying, these people need to be sorted out. We need to repent, and we need to have more babies, because of actually in the world, like in America, I don't think they're able to replace their population. For a population to replace itself, you must have 2.1 children per woman. And actually, even our population is going down in Kenya because of the abortions and the contraceptives. Marie Stopes has been here since 1985, killing babies. Yeah. So that's how many years ago? 1985. Those children would have been about 40 years old. There are many. Yeah. So really just forget about contraception and abortion, and let's go back and put sexuality where it was, within marriage and open to life. Abstain from sex before marriage, be faithful to your spouse, and always you'll enjoy intimacy when you're open to life. These methods do work. Do not be afraid. And every child is born carrying a plate of rice. I can assure you, I managed to educate my children. It was not easy, but I've educated them. And the fact, actually, the best gift you can give a child is a sibling, not money, not material things. My children are very responsible. Why? Because they had to look after one another. Yeah, we couldn't spoil them. Actually, at some point, I thought, why can't I be able to spoil these kids and have all the money? Actually, God doesn't want that. God wants children who are responsible and it starts in the home when they're looking after each other, because there are many, and you're not giving them everything that they ask for. That's permissive parenting. That's why we have a generation of spoiled children, because you want to have one, you want to have two, and God wants you to have more. We're not telling you to have a child every year, but the best gift you can give a child is a sibling. And those are the happy families. I stand for life, faith, and family, and the dignity of the human person from conception until natural death. And my company is called Wasahili Family Wellness Center. And so I'm a counseling psychologist, medical doctor, and a fertility education coach. So thank you for letting me share.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Eda. I told you, you are better gifted in sharing with your stories than when you show us slides. I enjoy it. I would listen to it the whole night. Thank you very much. We are blessed to have you. So in this group also we have Irene is a member of our group. Irene is the one who is usually in charge of this evening session that happens every first Friday of the month. Irene, you can unmute and say hi. I hope you're there. Yeah, and we are quite a number. Today I can see 4 people. There is Irene and there is Ceci. Ceci is the one who is always making for us these flyers. Now, questions. Anybody with a question, you can raise up your hand. Questions to do with contraceptives. If you have a testimony, you can also raise up your hand. Then I will allow you to unmute. Another thing is I have put there a link for a session we ever had in another group, not this organization, which was entitled The Untold Stories of Contraceptives. And this was done by one of us again, with whom we started this organization. Unfortunately, we had to lose him at the thickness of the battle last year, and that is Dr. Karanja. May God rest his soul in peace. Yeah, so I was with him and worked with him and walked with him, and then did that session, and it's very powerful. You will be able to watch in that link. And Dr. Karanja did a lot of research in these things, and nobody could dispute. He went to every lab, worked with Lancet and Cambridge and all the other labs, and was able to prove all those allegations. He was able to prove them, and he became an enemy of very many people. So you will be able to get that link there. Now, anybody with a question, usually this is a session that ends at 10. Last month, I saw it extend because it was probably also juicier, because people, the topic was abortion. I've put that link again, somebody asked. And then this time round, it's also gone longer. So this session has been recorded, and I will share a link. If you'd like to get a link, kindly just put your email there. Otherwise, we have a YouTube channel where I will post it, and you can also get to learn more about us from lindavijanainitiative.org. Initiative.org, and that is where we post. That is where we have lots of information to do with us. So here I am posting the link to our channel where we will post it, and then here is our website. So I've not seen anybody with a hand up who would like to ask a question, and that might mean that we are fine. Otherwise, yes, welcome, Irene. You are temporarily down. You want to say hello, Irene?
Hi. Just when you are
Hi.
just introducing me, network ikaenda, but I'm very sorry. The session was very, very nice. I have learned a lot, and it had really reminded me on the book also that Dr. Eda had written for us, because some of the information that you have given, I have really learned also from Dr. Eda, and also what you have said, I am learning. Me as a single person going to marriage, at least now I'll be knowing what to do and what not to do as I go through on that session. So the session has been very, very good.
Actually,
Thank
right now I'm
you.
counseling. I'm
Yeah,
counseling
yeah.
a couple who are they're engaged to be married, and it's a long distance relationship. And one lives in Kenya, and the fiance lives in America. So we're actually going through natural family planning, so that by the time he's finished whatever he's going to do there, they'll just come, and it's good to start before the marriage.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So for me, I'm just learning a lot. And thank you very, very, very much, Chris, for the session that you've given us today.
Somebody has a question
Thank
that they're
you.
asking about
Thank
the
you very much.
reparation.
No, Dr. Eda, thank you. Now, Irene, very good, and thank you for organizing this. You've not told us what is coming next month, which topic?
Next month, we are dealing with pregnancy and abortion methods.
Oh, okay. Sawa. Thank you very much. Now, what I'd like us to do, I've seen the question there is about reparation, which is really not about related to the topic. The topic is contraception. That is more religious, and we are not really a religious organization. And when we talk of reparation, some of the people who are non-Catholics, like Irene, will even wonder, what is that reparation? We have other people who are non-Catholics in our board. And so that will deviate us a little. So I would not like us to go that direction for now. But Chris and Glory, you can put your contacts there so that people who have other related personal questions can reach you. And even for more information where need be, you can put your number there. Maurice, my friend, I will give you a chance to make your comment, and you can go ahead. You can unmute and go.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul Peters, and our presenters today. Thank you very much. I've learned a lot. I was just reflecting about the discussion that we've just had, and just throwing the ball to all of us. At what point do we reach what we can call objective between religion and science? Because from a Catholic perspective, I'm also Catholic. I totally agree and go by what the presenters have done. But on the contrary point also, there are people who say they're also scientists who have come up with arguments to prove the efficacy of these contraceptives. And so at what point do we remove religion from making an objective point of view? That is one. And then closely related to that, and maybe this I might also be misquoted, I think there's a pope who once advised couples, maybe it was misquoted, that it will be foolish if one of the couples is HIV positive to have a relationship with the other one and knows very well that they'll spread the infection from one point to the other. Maybe it's not a pope, sorry, it's not a pope, but maybe a priest advising that it will be foolish for a couple to continue having unprotected sex when they know that they can continue infecting the other one with HIV. And we know that, for example, a condom has been said to reduce to some extent the transmission of HIV. So I'm just asking, what is your opinion on this? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maurice, with your question. And I love it. I know Chris and Dr. Eda will have an input. Perhaps being non-presenter today, I can start with mine, which might not be very authoritative. But one is just to highlight that one, Linda Vijana has two pillars. One is scientific. We will not say something that is not scientific. It is not a religious organization, like I said. And two, they should be having Christian values. So we are Christians. And now those are two pillars that we rely on. And then the other thing that we've learned over the years is that all researches related to this industry are sponsored by the very same merchants. So the results must be geared towards what is required. And then the narrative is built about it. So unfortunately, there is not most of like this industry where now we are talking about the natural whatever, it doesn't have money. So they don't sponsor a lot of things. You will not see their billboards. You will not hear them talking about it in the radios, television, and everywhere else. You will not see lots of documents, except perhaps in the church, because the church does quite some research, by the way. Last year, we had a discussion with Father the one in charge of International Life Kenya, something like that. I'm forgetting his name. And he's a gynecologist, by the way. And the other one is Father Connor, very much knowledgeable in this. And then the church has taught lots of people. We have Sister Florence, a medical doctor as well, who's really researched on this. So the church is not sleeping, is not just waking up with theories. That is one thing I've learned and come to appreciate. So it is not, it is both spiritual and scientific, because God does not err. And in the morning we had some discussion. Fortunately, you are in that group. And I was talking about the convergence of knowledge. There is no discrete knowledge that this one points towards this direction, this one points towards this direction. It is God who created the universe and the science behind it. We use science to discover what God created. So that is the way we believe. And I want to say that, in my opinion, and from what I feel today and after some study on this, personally, I feel like the use of condom is more of like masturbation. I stand to be corrected. Aya. Now, Chris, you can say something, then Dr. Eda can say something, and then I think we will be done.
So, Maurice, what I would want to say on the first question on about science and theology. So that is one of the struggles myself I've gone through in life. Myself, I was a seminarian. I did some philosophy and some theology before my discernment to marriage. So I came and found out that, and you can also verify this on your own when you study and everything, and ask the correct people. What science does, science is running after theology. Science is verifying what theology has been teaching all the way through. It's only that they are proving. That is one thing that I have come to learn. And even you can ask most of the scholars. If you study the writings of St. Thomas Aquinas on God's existence and everything, you'll come to find science is just following. It is just running after theology and verifying, oh, this also said, oh, to me verify. Oh, this was said. That is one thing you'll come to learn. And I think, like philosophy, you have to, for you to philosophy questions things. You ask the question why this, and myself I look to most of the major philosophers. I usually look at Thomas Aquinas, and I don't care what anyone says. Thomas Aquinas, his writing has been used. They are used in Catholic courts. They are used in Christian courts. St. Thomas Aquinas is an angelic doctor of the Catholic Church. So for me, it doesn't matter anyone or which doctor says this. If I go to the doctors of the church, they say that. I don't care what the others say, because you can't, he's among the angelic doctors of the Catholic Church. So his writings are approved to be free from error. And you can study them being a Catholic yourself. So that's one of the things. And that's why I usually meet with these people maybe who are confused. They had a priest say something in the pulpit, or a priest is telling them, oh, don't worry, use your conscience, some nonsense. Just go pick St. Thomas Aquinas, what he says. It doesn't matter whether your bishop is saying the contrary. Follow what the church has been teaching. So, and I came to realize also you can't divide science. There's less likelihood of science and theory to differ. Actually, I've come to realize that I've never myself found anything that is differing between science and theology. It's only that you'll find theology will be much way ahead and science will be there to verify. Now, the second question, I don't know if I've answered your first question well. The second question, it's about that question. I think the one who was posed that question was Saint Teresa of Calcutta. Somebody was asking her because Mother Teresa was among the champions who was promoting life, and one of the parishioners, I don't know, sent her a letter. I think sent her a letter. I've read it somewhere a while years back, around 5 years ago. How can I do now? My wife is, my husband is positive, and I don't want to contract HIV. And I think Mother Teresa answered her that that's a cross she has to carry in marriage, if I don't remember. But it's not a must they be intimate, because I think they were almost menopause. I remember that question very well. It was Saint Teresa of Calcutta, and she was being sent a letter by one of the people who are following her very closely, and she said that you have to take marriage as its own process, and that's one of the things that contraception does, removing sacrificial love and the process of marriage. You will find that, like most of the young people nowadays, we are lost. We think we are getting marriage for pleasure, to use my partner, and one of the things that of the married people fear, they fear being pregnant. That it's better you tell somebody you'll get HIV. That one she'll be okay. But if you tell her she's pregnant, she'll be having all the worries in the till the end of the earth. I don't know. I've never wondered why. So that is the contraceptive mentality actually that has developed all over the years. So thank you.
Yes, Dr. Eda.
Sorry. You mean my voice was on when I was coughing? I'm so sorry. I wish you had muted me.
Just proceed and make your comments. We are way out of time.
There's actually no contradiction between religion, our faith, and science. The fact that actually science is just the discovery of God's creation. And we have, as doctors, as scientists, we have one obligation when we're treating people, is to stick to the Hippocratic oath, never to do harm. Number one, never to do harm. Number two, always to do good. Number three, always to treat everybody with justice. And so these things, when you find that the World Health Organization now is calling the abortion, which is the deliberate killing of the unborn person, and separation of what is a violent separation of what is the closest relationship in the world, mother and child, and all the effects of killing that child and the effects it has on the mother. And the World Health Organization is calling it healthcare. It is called, when somebody has gender dysphoria, they've decided that gender dysphoria is no longer a mental illness. They've decided that same-sex attraction is no longer a mental illness. So it's all about political correctness now. There's nothing to do with science there. That somebody who's perfectly normal, a perfectly normal girl, 15 years old, decides that she's a boy trapped in a girl's body and goes to have her breasts chopped off. Yes. And people are cutting off perfectly normal genitals and private parts in the name of becoming a transgender, what they call it, what do they call it? Gender reassignment surgery. And this is what the World Health Organization is calling healthcare. I think we really need to think about whether these are really practicing science or whether it is something else just for material benefit and just to destroy the family completely. Because one of the basic precepts of our faith is that we were created in the image and likeness of God, who is love, and we were made male and female. So science should follow that. Men will never be women and women will never be men. So we treat people by respecting the anatomy and physiology of the person. What is the physiology? The physiology is that there's an ovulation cycle in a girl and in a woman. And if you check the structure of the body and the man, we're actually made for each other. We're complementary. So these things, if you look at any organ, the ear is designed for taking in sound. The eye is designed for taking in light. The mouth is designed for taking in food. The lung is designed for taking in air. So if I decide to take in food and water in my lungs, you know exactly what will happen. I will choke to death and people have drowned. Yeah. So the same thing, the sexual organs, the way they were designed, man and women were supposed to be complementary because each of us represent only half of humanity. Yeah. So if the sexual act is actually designed to be open to life and to give life and to give pleasure, because if it's not pleasurable, we would never eat. For example, if eating was not pleasurable, we would never eat and would starve to death. If sex was not pleasurable, we would never engage in the marital act and would be extinct. So God had to put that beautiful act. It's a beautiful act and it's a holy sacred act when it's performed in marriage, but it has certain conditions. For its function to be there, it must always be open to life, whether or not the lady is fertile, and it should be life-giving and love-giving. So the pleasure cannot be separated from the life-giving act. So once you separate the two, then you no longer have the function. Exactly like in the Roman times, when people wanted to have the pleasure of eating, but they didn't want to get fat. What did they do? They would eat and then vomit. So the primary purpose of eating was completely negated because they just wanted the pleasure to vomit and come back. And that was a very big sin. In the same way, if you just want the pleasure of sex, but without being open to life, then God is not in that mix. It's another spirit who is in that mix. And Hebrews, the book of Hebrews tells us never to defile the marital bed. So God is a provider. He's a loving provider. And also he has given us the fertility cycle to understand how the normal anatomy and physiology works. And we should respect that when we are treating people. Yeah. Contraceptives are one of the 7 toxicities. I'm a member of the International Association for a Disease-Free World. Contraceptives are not medicines. Okay, so let us follow the science. You know, they've been talking for the past 2 years, follow the science, follow the science. And what did we find out? So I'm not going to get into that issue now. But many of the times when they say follow the science, there's nothing scientific. It's just about enriching the big pharmaceutical agencies. Nothing to do with science.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so I think in conclusion, we've come to an end of this. There is no point that science will contradict religion, and that is true religion. And there is only one source of truth. Every time I reflect on the word truth, I remember that Pilate, Jesus and Pilate were discussing. Pilate asked Jesus, what is the truth? And then Jesus did not answer. And yet Jesus had told him, those who seek the truth follow him. You see, Jesus did not answer. And I wondered, why didn't he answer? I later reflected and got the answer. He had already said the truth, that I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now, number two, always when people talk of science, and promoting a particular thing, there is something people do or we do when people, when investigation is being done, even for murder. A question that is always asked is, who is benefiting from this? Yes. What is the motivation? And always when you find the motivation for killing, you know the probable killer. So it's always good to know what is the motivation behind promoting all these other things, and people talking about science, and then nowadays there is misinformation, disinformation, whatever information, while people are talking of something that is not necessarily science and cannot be proven. The Bible says, my people perish due to lack of knowledge. But my biggest problem has always been that I think man is too lazy to look for information. So we always wait for some people to take advantage of that and bring to us their own understanding, which would benefit them. And then we buy it gladly without verifying. I always love to say that I think it's through science that I discovered God. I had problems believing lots of things, including the existence of God, including whether heaven exists and all that. But I'm a physicist. I did a degree in physics in the University of Nairobi and went into those philosophies and questioning and interrogating. I came to one conclusion: there is God, and everything else exists because of him. That's why I say there cannot be two truths. There cannot be small truth and big truth. One truth. No, there is only one source of all knowledge, and that is the cause of all causes. And so we must stand by what is true, and that is what we at Linda Vijana Initiative, we stand to disseminate. That is what we tell the people, that this is what is verifiable, the verified truth. Thank you very much, and I would like to